I've always been a feminist, but I didn't feel like it was appropriate for my brand. Like I talk about abuse and trauma bonds. So talking about patriarchy and feminism is different. I can't see it that way anymore. I made this connection, which to me in hindsight seems so obvious, but I made this connection of like, how do you separate the two? Because why does abusiveness happen? Where do people feel so entitled to use coercive control? And you can't talk about this without talking about patriarchy, without feminism and how people are raised, gender norms. It's all part of it. You think about something you've talked a lot about, right? This perfect prey. Why are women like that? What has shaped this view of women and how we're supposed to behave? How do we not talk about that? But on that topic, tell us about this perfect prey, because a lot of women want to know, like, what is it about me that makes these people attracted to me?
Well, I would say that children are perfect prey. So anybody who is just wanting to feel unconditional love and to be accepted for who they are. And because of that, in particular, I think a lot of women work really hard at relationships, and again, this highly agreeable, empathic, Sandra Brown from the Institute of Relationship Studies talks about them as super traits. So imagine if everybody on the planet was actually giving and kind and optimistic, not perfect, by the way, not perfect, but optimistic, empathic, loyal, worked hard at things. Imagine, like that would be pretty cool. It'd be pretty amazing. And so the problem is that those traits that are absolutely wonderful are traits that also are very readily boundary crossed. And so a victim is unfortunately, and children in particular, that's what children are, right? I remember as a child hearing this absolutely horrible analogy, but a beaten dog will go back to his owner all the time, right? And so we know that about animals, our beautiful fur babies. Same thing happens with our children, right? That very often they just want to believe the best in their parents. I have a mom, I have many moms, but like this one example of like a 12-year-old who was physically assaulted by his father. His father was arrested. By the time he was 14, he was living with his father. He had totally disassociated from the harm, totally trauma bonded, absolutely trauma bonded. So women are perfect prey, children are perfect prey. And I would say again that patriarchy harms little boys. We live in a world where they're getting so much disinformation, it's just not even helpful and the information is harming them. So we've got a lot of work to do. That's why we need more people doing this work.
I always feel like there's so much space in this industry of abuse and domestic violence to be loud about this. And I know that not everybody can speak about it. And I feel like I speak certainly on behalf of myself, but of the women who can't or who choose not to for their own reasons, which is perfectly fine for people to do. I want to take you to a little section of this called Real Talk from the Comments. I want to read you a couple of comments left by people on my page when I talk about coercive control and control. Just kind of get your reaction to these comments. This is what people think, right? This is what some people think in the world about the concept of control. So I'll read you the first comment. If a woman loves her husband, she shouldn't have a problem doing what makes him comfortable. That's what keeps a marriage strong. My wife knows that I don't like her hanging out with certain friends, and she doesn't. That's just mutual respect. We don't need outsiders calling it abuse.
I want to talk to her. I want to find out if she's doing it to make him happy, to appease him, or if it truly makes her happy.
So many of these comments, my response is always like, is your wife okay? Or you see a profile picture and it's like a man with his daughter and you're like, really? Oh my God.
Yeah.
This is bad. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
That's coercive control. I think it's a perfect example, right? My wife knows what I like and what I don't like. And so she just doesn't. And it's called respect. It's called coercive control.
That voiceover was perfect.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So true. The other comment, also horrible. God, this is why men don't want to date anymore. Everything we do is suddenly abuse. You can't even have preferences without being labeled controlling.
That's not true, though. People can have preferences. Honey, I don't want to go out tonight, but you go out without me. That's a preference, right? Or, honey, I'm not really keen on that girlfriend. I don't like hanging out with that girlfriend of yours, but you go out and enjoy your time with her, right? But that's different than control. Control is, I hate your girlfriend I love this one. My ex used to tell me people didn't like me. So, yeah, right? Yeah. She did say that about the outfit you were wearing the other night. Are you sure you want to go out with her? That's control. right? So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I'd love to spend Friday night home with you. That's fine. But if it's every Friday night and you have plans and somebody's sabotaging your plans, that's a problem, right? How
Yeah.
many times has your partner taken your plans and sabotaged them? How many times?
Right. Have
And
you
if
lost
that's
count?
again, and if it's more than once,
Mhm.
it's a pattern,
Right.
right? And so understanding that as time goes on in these relationships, we get so worn down that we may have started off with our boundaries out here. And now all of a
Mhm.
sudden we're in a little box. Ask
Yeah.
yourself, are you in a box now? Are you able to express yourself? Are you able to play your music? Are you able to dance in the kitchen if you want to? Able to not cook dinner tonight? What are the things, right? And I also, just to highlight that a lot of people think financial abuse is like, you don't have access to money or you're on a strict budget or you can't do X, Y, or Z. A lot of times financial abuse is you're the workhorse. So my brother called me, you're the workhorse, Christine. You're doing all the work. And then the abuser doesn't contribute their fair share into the account, but then they tell you that they did. It's all gaslighting, right? I think that's the important thing, right? Lisa says we need to be intentionally thinking about the parts of the relationship that are transformative, that make us feel good, that add to our life, and the parts of the relationship that are simply transactional.
That's so important, to really reflect on your relationship. Marriage isn't perfect. Relationships aren't perfect. But this whole kind of idea of like, maybe everybody's partner screams at them sometimes. No, that's not true. You can have a disagreement, you can have preferences. But I think too, the concept of even the example that person was sort of alluding to in that comment, preferences. Right now, you make it seem like the person, the victim in the relationship is not understanding that they have preferences or that the victim is controlling. I was called controlling so often because I said, like you say you're going to be home in 20 minutes and you come home 11 hours late. And then you accuse me of trying to give you a curfew and call me controlling. And it's like, I think it's normal to know where your partner is in 9 a.m. the next day when they said they'd be home in 20 minutes. Do you know what I mean? Like it's so, but so I'm not allowed to go out. And yeah,
Yeah.
they really twist things.
They do. The Darvo is very true, right? They deny, attack, and reverse. They become the victim. You're controlling of me when they're the one who's been controlling all along. And maybe now you do want them home tonight on Friday night because last Friday night you caught them cheating on you, right?
Right.
So-
So like maybe you're, but I would say that's not even control. That's like insecurity, which is justified as opposed to this made up insecurity. Like my
Of
ex-girlfriend
course.
cheated on me, so you can't go out with your friends but it all sounds so plausible. And again, I feel like that's kind of the point here is that it hides behind, this is my boundary, or hey, I just have a preference that my wife doesn't go out with her friends ever. And it's not, it's control. So I want us to sort of cut through some of the language and find these patterns that you're talking about, because if you don't feel free, there's something wrong.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If you can't be yourself, if you can't relax, if you're walking on eggshells, if you're being made fun of and it just, there's supposed to be a joke and it doesn't feel good. If somebody's used a vulnerability against you, told them something in private that really bothered you and they exposed it or used it in an argument, that's not fair fighting. That's abuse.